come to a point in my life in trying to better understand where I am in the totality of my well-being, self-reflection and self-introspection. My life framework as a thematic and theoretical reflection. Yet, while at the same time, it is shaped from family tradition, cultural tradition and background, individual experiences, and environment. And possibly we can see, or I come to see, what my personal struggle is. And we can see, or I can see, how well grounded I am, if I may use that language, I am, and how connected or disconnected I am, or I have become. And in this circular motion of life, I'm trying to reconnect and become more grounded. So I'm trying to explore this interaction with culture, background, and traditions, family background, environment, and individual experiences as my framework for personal development. Now, this could take on a life of his own when it comes to culture. And when it comes to the residuals of psychological slavery and misguidance and misinformation of this explorative venture called life. And then I deal with the family background and how that connects with the culture. And that could have been misguided, misdirected, and disconnected. I may have not been as, or I may not be, I should say, as grounded as I think that I am. And then it comes to environment. May not be as grounded, or I may have taken on the disposition of the environment. Instead of just living, I may be in what people call in a survival mode, and then therefore that becomes my culture, and that becomes my family due to the interruption of the natural, if I may use it, explorative, evolutionary process unto social maturity. Because I really believe that we should be about social mature discourse, and really believe in the maturation process of understanding, tolerance, temperance/temperament, confidence, and respect. And then I connect with the individual experiences. Dealing with the individual experiences, environment, family, traditional family background, and culture background. My personal struggle and framework for personal development. And these four fundamentals, forces, culture background and tradition, family background and tradition, environment, individual experiences, these four lenses, or these forces, serves as understanding, or serve as my framework in understanding who I am and where I am, and how I relate with myself and interact with myself, and then therefore how I interact with others. The framework of perception and forming I look through things from a thematic lens, or a thematic foundation from which my personal philosophy, my understanding, my level of tolerance, my temperance/temperament, my confidence and respect of how not only the mission that I'm on, but how I emerge, how I grow. My personal development plays a part in my personal development when it comes to being socially mature. The culture background and traditions. The cultural values that influence my worldview. It could be African-centered. It could be Western influenced or African influenced. It could be Western-centered. How can you have a Western-centered when it comes to culture background? But I'm saying the Western influence, or the American, it could be American-centered. This culture in which I identify with. Dr. Du Bois talked about a double consciousness. Imam D. Muhammad called it confused sensitivity. So we're dealing with this double consciousness then. Even when it comes to community and responsibility and spirituality. In whom and who I primarily should have respect for. Well, in the cultural traditions, it should be having respect for elders. That is the grounding. Well, let's look at Erikson theory, stages of identity versus role confusion. This shows how culture shapes a sense of one's identity. Then if I could connect Maslow, now I'm dealing with my esteem needs. And esteem really is, in the Latin sense, is an estimation. In estimation, you count the cost. You count the cost. There is some sacrifice, and some sacrifice because how disciplined or undisciplined I am. And we deal with the cultural pride fulfills a place of belonging. Purpose and heritage. And we deal with Bronfenbrenner microsystem, which represents cultural layer of development, the cultural layers of development. Because there are layers of development, and even when it comes to culture. Because if I give a definition, it is the totality of thought and practice. And I've learned every thought begins with a seed. But these cultural traditions, how grounded I am when it comes to my personal struggle in personal development of where I am right now. The cultural tradition is grounded. How have it grounded me? How well am I grounded? Am I grounded in community-centered living? Has it taught me that self is not isolated to more cultural traditions, but an expression of a shared humanity? That was cultural traditions, culture background. Now we deal with the family background and traditions. In this, I reflect how my family structure was, the discipline that it gave, all the traditions, how it informed my view of being responsible, or my level of responsibility. Who was my level of responsibility to, and for what? Dealing with the love that was received, the leadership, and the guidance. For me, love is the mind and way in which we communicate as a family, our humanity. Then we deal with the extent of the damage and the injury that has been done to my humanity and to the humanity of my family and to the humanity of the culture. Then we deal with Erikson theory, stages of trust versus mistrust at a younger age. Then we deal with generative versus stagnation, the desire to guide, to nurture others without biological children, and which I do not have. I've learned that how can you nurture others if you have not yet first learned to nurture yourself? I'm talking about my personal struggle, my personal development through these lenses or theoretical framework, but yet it's evident to me. So I'm trying to do my best to move beyond theory, because I am evident of who I am and where I am based upon how I interact with myself and how I interact with others. Now, this is where the transition into discussion about the implications of not raising a family. Because it could be a symbolic expression, a generative or versus stagnation through the mission and of promoting the value of self-worth. That's what I say my mission is. My teaching, or what I teach, if I may use that language, and the legacy that I doing my best to leave behind. However well it is acknowledged, in receive or even known. Though I have not raised a biological family, but my life experiences is the biological clock that is raising me. Yes. So not raised a biological, but my family has extended through countless individuals whose lives I have touched and who have touched my life, whom I have counseled, if I may use that language, and guided. This is the manifestation of generative, beyond bloodline, rooted in purpose rather than parenthood. You see, my personal development, my personal struggle in this second thematic or framework, family, is that, and my personal development, my personal struggle is to a point of the manifestation of generative beyond bloodline. It should be rooted, or it is rooted in purpose rather than parenthood. See, for me, the aim is accountability. The goal is peace. And the purpose is to come into complete civility. Yes. Now we're dealing with environment. Environment is dealing with the physical and social environment, of course. For me, that is the touch of affection. The communities that I have served and been a part of, the struggles that I have witnessed, when it comes to addiction, and have witnessed and even experienced alienation, recovering how these became like laboratories for social learning. And like Brenners, me system, the me system. The meso system and the exosystem. Of social institutions and relationships shaping development. How all these things, what is transpired, and it has transpired and is transpiring, has shaped who I am. The exosystem and the meosystem or mesosystem. Social institutions and relationships. I'm staying on that and how they are shaping me, even though I am not as academically inclined as I would like to be. that can be very frustrating. Now we're dealing with self-esteem issues. I'm just putting out my personal development and personal struggle. Because at the end of the day, I have to live with myself. At the end of the day, we all have to live with who? Ourselves. So it wouldn't be appropriate to biologically raise someone when I am personally dealing with some self-esteem issues or dealing with some lack of self-confidence. And if I am not financially secure, so that which may not look good really is the best thing possibly that ever could have happened to me. Or happened for me, huh, man? Yeah. But let's tie this to Gestalt theory. The environment provides the field in which self-awareness and self-awareness and insight emerge. And you see that just transpired. Yes. See, a test is designed to see how you process information. Remember, I said I'm not as academically inclined as I would like to be, but I'm spiritually in tune. Yeah, and I'm not using the word spiritually in a loose sense. I'm talking about spiritual, anything that remains its natural form and natural state. I'm talking about my natural progression, my natural organic, my natural evolutionary process. Yes. Yeah, I'm in tune. With who? With myself. Challenge if you so wish. My environment tested me. It reveals what? The lessons of my culture background. And what family has instilled in me. Each challenge became an opportunity to transform adversity into awareness and alienation into understanding. This is what is emerging right now before my very own eyes. And this is what could be emerging right before your eyes if we're paying attention. That's why it says you look, you listen, and you learn. Now, let's look at the individual experiences and reflect on that, on defining personal moments. We just did that. I just did that. Because at times we have our moments. Sometimes there could be in anyone's life moments of what? Of doubt. But in these personal moments, we're dealing with struggles. Remember, my personal development and my personal struggle. Or struggles. Dealing with redemptive turning points. Struggles are really redemptive turning points. It is very pivotal when it comes to leadership, and when it comes to growth, and when it comes to development. Yeah. Now, if I could integrate Erickson's theory of integrity versus despair, Dr. King alluded to something in that aspect. accepting one's life as meaningful. And what do I mean? Because I always say that we have meaning is in our DNA. We are carriers of meaning. We are carriers of the message of meaning. By us being on this plane of existence, we are contributors. However small or large, we are contributed. However, in the manner and way in which we are contributing, we're still what? Contributing. But we're here to be productive and to be good stewards of that which have been produced. So this redemptive turning point in Erickson, accepting one's life as meaning, and then Maslow's self-actualization. It says that many don't get to self-actualization. But yet biologically, as we're here, we self-actualize. We have made a contribution. When a man and a woman get together, they get married, they're making a contribution to the society, financially or otherwise. Then when they give birth to a child, they're making a contribution. However, that contribution is being made. Even by this technology that we have, it is a contribution. It's just the intent and the manner and way in which we use anything. Even how we utilize our time. Because the answer to the question is a question of governance. Now, this individual experience is about emphasizing, or the emphasis is placed on how individual experiences refines what we have learned. And I don't want to get into anything we say some people can learn to be a better manipulator or a better criminal or whatever. But refines what we have learned. It refines the wisdom. You have to find the wisdom in anything, just like perception is not reality, but is on its way to reality. So you're extracting from the principles of a thing. But this thing is my thematic insight is central. My personal development, my personal struggle, my contribution is central, not only to the philosophy, if I may use that language that I shared, but it is central to my intelligence. Because see, when someone prays, P-R-E-Y, on one's emotions, they're really insulting the person's intelligence. And the sophistication of the hustle is to undermine the credibility of another. Because they themselves are not credible and they themselves are avoiding accountability. When it comes to personal development and personal struggle, we're going to have these struggles, and we don't personal development, but at sometimes people can take on the Peter Pan syndrome. You don't want to grow up. You got guided missiles and misguided men, as Dr. King would say. So, my individual experience has taught me that healing does not mean that the damage never existed. I'm just not letting it control me. I forgot the gentleman who that is contributed to. I just use it a lot. So in this wise, summarizing how Erikson, Maslow, and Brofenbrenner, and how they explain, as I use these three as a part of my framework, my thematic framework, and show how my life embodies psychosocial development, self-actualization, and ecological harmony. And how this is applied, and how I use this and turn it to an academic understanding of social healing. It's all academic.